The Carlton Intercontinental Hotel heist. The $136 million diamond robbery. The summer of 2013 transformed the glamorous French Riviera into an unlikely epicenter of high stakes jewelry theft. Cannes, the glittering playground of the international elite, became the hunting ground for sophisticated criminals who seemed to strike at will. What began as isolated incidents would culminate in one of the most audacious and valuable jewelry heists in criminal history. The Carlton Intercontinental Hotel, perched majestically on the Promenade de la Croisette, had long been synonymous with luxury and exclusivity. This was the very hotel that served as the backdrop for Alfred Hitchcock's 1955 thriller To Catch a Thief, a fitting piece of cinematic irony that would prove prophetic decades later. The exhibition that attracted wolves. In July 2013, the Carlton hosted what would become one of the most ill-fated jewelry exhibitions in history. The jewels were stolen from the company founded by Israeli diamond mogul Lev Leviev, whom the New York Times described in 2007 as probably Israel's richest man and the man who broke the De Beers International Diamond Cartel. His Lviv diamond house had arranged a temporary summer exhibition showcasing some of the world's most exquisite diamonds and precious stones. The exhibition was a private, exclusive showing organized by what investigators later described as the Dubai-based organizer of the diamond show. This was not a public display, but rather an intimate presentation for high-end clientele and potential buyers held in a private hotel salon within the Carlton. The collection was a dazzling array of craftsmanship and natural beauty, featuring diamond-encrusted jewelry, precious gemstones, and luxury watches that represented the pinnacle of luxury craftsmanship. The exclusive nature of the exhibition would prove to be both a blessing and a curse. While it limited the number of potential witnesses, it also meant that security protocols were significantly less rigorous than those typically employed for major public exhibitions. The valuables were stolen from a private hotel salon, which was very poorly guarded, the guards having no weapons. This security arrangement would prove catastrophically inadequate for a collection that would later be valued at $136 million. The exhibition featured an extraordinary collection of jewelry pieces, including rare diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and sapphires, set in elaborate gold and platinum settings. Among the stolen items were numerous high-end watches, diamond necklaces, bracelets, rings, and brooches that represented years of master craftsmanship. The collection had been carefully curated to appeal to the ultra-wealthy clientele who frequented Cannes during the summer season, with each piece representing not just monetary value, but also artistic and cultural significance. Unknown to the hotel management and exhibition organizers, Cannes had already become the target of choice for jewelry thieves. In May 2013, during the renowned Cannes Film Festival, two significant heists had already occurred. The first saw robbers steal approximately $1 million worth of jewels after literally ripping a safe from the wall of a hotel room at the Novotel. The second incident was even more brazen. Thieves managed to outsmart 80 security guards at the Hotel du Capadonner, OC, and made off with a De Grisagano necklace valued at $2.6 million during a lavish party. These preliminary strikes should have served as warning shots, indicating that organized criminals were systematically targeting the area's concentration of wealth and luxury goods. However, the success of these earlier heists may have only emboldened the criminals, providing them with valuable intelligence about local security measures and response times. While the exact details of the pre-heist surveillance remain largely unknown due to the unsolved nature of the crime, criminal behavior patterns and the precision of the eventual robbery suggest extensive reconnaissance was conducted. The thief would have needed to gather critical intelligence about several key factors. The physical layout. The Carlton's ground floor, where the exhibition was held, featured large glass doors opening directly onto the famous Promenade de la Croisette. This accessibility was both a selling point for the hotel's luxury appeal and a security vulnerability that would prove fatal. Security protocols. The exhibition relied on 3 private security guards, which, for a collection later valued at $136 million, represented a surprisingly light security presence. The guards were notably unarmed, a detail that would prove crucial to the heist's success. Staff schedules and routines. The robbery occurred on a Sunday morning, suggesting the perpetrator had studied the hotel's operational patterns and identified this as a time of reduced activity and potentially slower response times. The jewelry storage system, perhaps most critically, The thief somehow learned that the most valuable pieces were stored in two separate bags, which were then placed inside a larger container bag. This specific knowledge suggests either inside information or extremely detailed surveillance. The heist. The morning sun cast its golden glow across the Promenade de la Croisette as early tourists and locals began their leisurely Sunday routines. The Carlton Intercontinental Hotel stood as it always did, monument to elegance and luxury, its staff preparing for another day of catering to the world's elite. At approximately 11:30 a.m., as the exhibition space maintained its quiet Sunday morning atmosphere, a lone figure approached the hotel. The perpetrator was methodically prepared for the task ahead, his appearance carefully crafted to be both intimidating and anonymous. The thief entered through the glass doors that opened directly from the Promenade de la Croisette onto the hotel's ground floor. Vast ground floor. This entrance point was strategically brilliant. It provided immediate access to the exhibition space, while offering multiple escape routes back onto one of Europe's most famous boulevards, where he could quickly blend into the crowd of tourists and locals. His appearance was designed for maximum psychological impact, while maintaining anonymity. He wore a dark cap pulled low over his face and a scarf wrapped around his neck, obscuring his features from potential witnesses and security cameras. Most critically, he was armed with a handgun, though subsequent investigation would reveal he made no attempts to disguise his weapon or employ any sophisticated criminal tools. As the thief entered the exhibition area, he encountered exactly what his reconnaissance had predicted: 3 private security guards, 2 jewelry vendors, and the exhibition manager. Notably absent were any customers, a detail that would prove fortuitous for both the criminal and the potential victims, as it meant fewer witnesses and less chaos. The security guards, as intelligence had presumably revealed, were unarmed. This critical piece of information transformed what could have been a potentially deadly confrontation into a relatively straightforward intimidation scenario. The thief's approach was businesslike and efficient. He brandished his weapon, issued clear threats to the assembled staff, and set about his work with remarkable composure. Philippe Vix, the deputy prosecutor for Grasse, who would later lead the investigation, described the robbery as very quick. The thief, demonstrating either remarkable nerve or extensive criminal experience, moved through the exhibition space with apparent confidence and purpose. The jewelry collection was stored in a sophisticated but ultimately inadequate security arrangement. The most valuable pieces were contained in 2 separate bags, which were then placed inside a larger outer bag. This storage method, while perhaps designed to provide multiple layers of security, actually simplified the thief's task. Instead of having to locate and steal individual pieces, he could simply grab the container holding the entire collection. The thief's movements were economical and precise. There was no ransacking, no desperate searching, and no apparent confusion about where to find the most valuable items. This surgical precision strongly suggested either inside knowledge or extraordinarily detailed surveillance. As the perpetrator moved to secure his prize, he demonstrated the same cool professionalism that had characterized his entire approach. He grabbed the bag containing the diamond-encrusted jewelry and prepared for his exit, all while maintaining control over the witnesses through the implicit threat of his weapon. However, even the most carefully planned crimes can encounter unexpected moments. As the thief made his way toward the glass doors for his escape, several jewels spilled from the bag. Rather than panicking or attempting to recover these pieces, he maintained his composure and continued his exit strategy. These spilled jewels would later be quickly recovered by hotel staff, providing investigators with some of the few physical evidence pieces from the crime scene. The escape. The entire robbery, from entry to exit, lasted approximately 1 minute, a time frame that speaks to both the thief's efficiency and the effectiveness of his planning. His escape route took him back through the same glass doors he had used to enter, depositing him directly onto the Promenade de la Croisette. This exit strategy was particularly clever. The Promenade de la Croisette is one of Europe's most famous boulevards, constantly populated with tourists, locals, street vendors, and performers. By emerging onto this crowded thoroughfare, the thief could immediately blend into the crowd and disappear among the hundreds of people who regularly walk the promenade. The choice of a Sunday morning also proved strategically sound. Weekend mornings in tourist destinations like Cannes tend to have a more relaxed, leisurely pace. Police response times might be slightly slower, and the general atmosphere is less hurried, allowing a fleeing criminal to avoid drawing attention through rapid movement. The immediate aftermath. In the immediate moments following the thief's departure, the exhibition space was filled with stunned silence. The 3 security guards, 2 vendors, and exhibition manager found themselves processing what had just occurred. The speed and efficiency of the robbery left little time for heroic intervention or detailed observation of the perpetrator. The hotel staff quickly contacted local authorities, setting in motion what would become one of the most intensive jewelry theft investigations in French criminal history. Initial reports estimated the stolen goods at approximately $53 million, a figure that would later prove to be dramatically underestimated. As investigators and insurance assessors began cataloging exactly what had been stolen, a shocking discovery emerged that would transform the entire case. The initial estimates of approximately $53 million had failed to account for another room in the hotel, where additional jewelry had been stored. This oversight led to a dramatic revision of the theft's value, ultimately placing it at $136 million, making it potentially one of the most valuable jewelry heists in history. Assistant prosecutor Philippe Vic announced that the Dubai-based organizer of the diamond show had raised the estimated value after conducting a more thorough inventory. The Nice prosecutor's office confirmed that the value of the stolen jewels was close to $136 million, more than twice what had previously been stated. This revelation came as a complete shock to investigators, who realized they were dealing with losses of unprecedented magnitude. This discovery also raised troubling questions about the exhibition's organization and security arrangements. How could such valuable items be stored in multiple locations without comprehensive security protocols? The revelation suggested either catastrophically poor organization or the possibility that the thief had even more detailed knowledge of the exhibition's layout than initially suspected. The fact that jewelry worth tens of millions of dollars had been essentially overlooked in initial assessments highlighted the chaotic nature of the exhibition's security arrangements. The investigation. Philippe Vic, deputy prosecutor for Grasse, took personal charge of the investigation, recognizing immediately that this was no ordinary robbery. The sheer value of the stolen goods, combined with the professional manner of the theft, indicated they were dealing with sophisticated international criminals rather than opportunistic local thieves. The investigation team faced several immediate challenges. Limited physical evidence. The brief duration of the robbery and the thief's careful preparation meant there was minimal physical evidence left at the scene. Beyond the few jewels that had spilled during the escape, investigators had little to work with in terms of fingerprints, DNA, or other forensic evidence. Witness testimony. While 6 witnesses had been present during the robbery, the traumatic nature of the experience and the thief's careful concealment of his identity meant descriptions were limited. The cap and scarf had effectively obscured his features, and the brief time frame made detailed observation difficult. Security camera footage. The hotel's security system provided some footage, but the quality and angles were insufficient to provide a clear identification of the perpetrator. The cameras had captured the general sequence of events, but failed to provide the detailed facial recognition that might have led to identification. Recognizing the international implications of such a sophisticated heist, French authorities quickly coordinated with Interpol and other international law enforcement agencies. The timing of the theft, just days after the Swiss prison break involving Pink Panther members, suggested possible connections to this notorious international crime syndicate. Investigators began examining several key areas: recent prison escapes, the escape of Milan Poparic, and other Pink Panther members from Swiss custody, just 3 days before the heist created an obvious line of inquiry. Authorities investigated whether these escaped criminals could have traveled to Cannes and executed the robbery. International criminal networks. Given the professional nature of the theft, investigators examined known international jewelry theft networks, focusing particularly on Eastern European crime syndicates with a history of targeting high-end establishments. Local intelligence. Despite the international focus, investigators also explored local connections, examining whether the thief might have had inside information about the exhibition's security arrangements and valuable inventory. The Pink Panther theory. The timing of the heist was particularly suspicious, given that just 3 days before the Carlton robbery, 2 alleged members of the notorious Pink Panther criminal network had escaped from a Swiss prison. This international crime syndicate, composed primarily of Eastern European criminals, had become legendary for their sophisticated jewelry heists across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and the United States. According to Interpol, the Pink Panthers had netted more than €330 million since 1999, targeting luxury watch and jewelry stores with surgical precision. Their modus operandi typically involved careful planning, quick execution, and immediate disappearance, characteristics that would perfectly match the Carlton heist. Milan Poparic emerged as the prime suspect almost immediately. His escape from Swiss custody, combined with his known expertise in jewelry theft and association with the Pink Panther network, created a compelling circumstantial case, though no direct evidence would ever link him to the crime. The Pink Panthers were known for exactly this type of operation: quick, professional, high-value jewelry thefts executed with military precision. The syndicate's previous operations showed remarkable similarities to the Carlton heist: careful reconnaissance and planning, quick execution with minimal violence, immediate disappearance following the crime, targeting of high value, portable goods, professional approach to intimidation and control. However, despite the compelling circumstantial evidence, investigators were unable to establish any direct physical evidence linking Poparic to the Carlton heist. His whereabouts during the crucial time period could not be definitively established, and no witnesses could positively identify him as the perpetrator. The manhunt. The investigation quickly expanded beyond French borders, with authorities coordinating across multiple European countries. The potential involvement of the Pink Panther network meant that traditional national boundaries were largely irrelevant. These criminals operated across Europe with sophisticated support networks and escape routes. Interpol issued alerts and shared intelligence with law enforcement agencies across Europe, focusing particularly on countries with known Pink Panther activity. Border controls were heightened, and airports and train stations received special alerts about potential suspects attempting to leave the region. One of the most challenging aspects of investigating high-value jewelry theft is tracing the stolen goods. Unlike cash, which can be tracked through serial numbers and banking systems, stolen jewelry must be either sold through criminal networks or broken down for its component parts. Investigators worked with international jewelry markets,
focusing on
underground markets. Known criminal jewelry fencing operations were monitored for any signs of the Carlton pieces entering the black market. Legitimate dealers, high-end jewelry dealers across Europe were alerted to watch for suspicious sales of premium diamonds and jewelry that might match the stolen Carlton pieces. Component sales. Many high-value jewelry thefts result in the stolen pieces being broken down, with individual diamonds and precious metals sold separately to obscure their origin. The Carlton heist demonstrated the challenges law enforcement faces when confronting truly professional criminals. Unlike opportunistic thieves who might make mistakes or leave obvious evidence, the Carlton thief had clearly planned extensively and executed the robbery with remarkable discipline. This professionalism extended to the post-theft period. Professional jewelry thieves typically have established networks for disposing of stolen goods, often moving the items quickly through international criminal networks that can transport them far from the scene of the crime within hours or days. Dead ends and false leads. Despite Milan Poparic emerging as the prime suspect, investigators struggled to build a case that would stand up in court. While the circumstantial evidence was compelling, standards required for criminal prosecution demanded more concrete proof. Investigators attempted to trace Poparic's movements following his prison escape, but the 3-day window between his escape and the Carlton heist provided ample time for travel and preparation. Moreover, professional criminals like Poparic are typically skilled at avoiding surveillance and maintaining false identities while traveling. As the Poparic investigation stalled, authorities explored other potential suspects and connections. Local criminal networks. French authorities investigated whether local criminals might have been involved, either as the primary perpetrators or as support for international thieves. Previous Cannes heists. Investigators examined possible connections between the Carlton heist and the earlier jewelry thefts that had occurred in Cannes during the film festival. The pattern of targeting suggested possible coordination or at least knowledge sharing between criminal groups. Inside information, the thief's apparent knowledge of the jewelry storage. Arrangements raised questions about possible inside information. Investigators examined hotel staff, exhibition personnel, and security guards for any potential connections to criminal networks. As months passed, investigators faced the harsh reality that they had insufficient evidence to build a prosecutable case against any suspect. The professional execution of the robbery had left minimal forensic evidence. Witness descriptions were too vague for positive identification, and security footage was inadequate for facial recognition. This evidence problem is characteristic of professional jewelry thefts. Unlike crimes of passion or opportunity, carefully planned heists are designed specifically to minimize the evidence left behind. The Carlton thief's success in this regard demonstrated a level of criminal sophistication that law enforcement struggles to combat with traditional investigative methods. The cold case reality? Despite extensive international investigation and cooperation between multiple law enforcement agencies, the Carlton heist remains completely unsolved more than a decade later. The investigation, which French authorities called absolutely incredible due to its audacious nature, has yielded no arrests, no recovery of stolen goods, and no definitive identification of suspects. This outcome represents one of the most complete criminal successes in modern history. The thieves were never caught, and the diamonds were never recovered. Not a single piece from the $136 million collection has ever been located, suggesting either extremely sophisticated disposal networks or the possibility that the jewelry remains hidden, waiting for a future opportunity to enter legitimate markets. The complete absence of recovery is particularly striking given the unique nature of many of the stolen pieces. High-end jewelry often features distinctive characteristics that make pieces identifiable even years after theft. The fact that none of the Carlton jewelry has ever surfaced in legitimate or illegitimate markets suggests either destruction of the pieces for their component materials or storage in criminal networks so sophisticated that they can completely isolate stolen goods from detection. This outcome, while devastating for the victims and insurers, is unfortunately not uncommon with high-value jewelry thefts executed by professional criminals. The combination of portable, high-value goods and sophisticated criminal networks creates challenges that often prove insurmountable for law enforcement. However, the Carlton heist represents the extreme end of this phenomenon, a theft so professionally executed that it achieved complete success in every aspect. The insurance aftermath. The Carlton heist created significant ripple effects in the insurance industry. Insurers faced massive claims for the stolen jewelry, leading to increased scrutiny of security arrangements for high-value exhibitions and events. Insurance companies began requiring more stringent security protocols for jewelry exhibitions, including armed security personnel, enhanced surveillance systems, improved storage and transport procedures, background checks for all personnel with access to valuable goods in the absence of definitive answers. The Carlton heist has become the subject of ongoing speculation and theory within both law enforcement circles and the general public. The involvement of the Pink Panther network remains the most widely accepted theory, though it has never been proven. Investigative journalist Ryan Jacobs, who has extensively researched the case, notes that most experts continue to believe the heist was the work of the Pink Panther network, despite the lack of concrete evidence. The professionalism of the execution and the timing relative to the Swiss prison escapes create a compelling, if unprovable, narrative. A pattern of sophisticated crime. The Carlton heist represents part of a broader pattern of increasingly sophisticated international crime that challenges traditional law enforcement approaches. Modern criminal networks operate across national boundaries with a level of organization and professionalism that often exceeds that the agencies tasked with stopping them. The Pink Panther network, regardless of their specific involvement in the Carlton heist, represents this evolution in criminal activity. Their operations demonstrate international coordination and planning, professional execution with minimal violence, sophisticated support networks for escape and goods disposal, adaptation to security measures and law enforcement tactics. High-value jewelry theft exists within a broader criminal economy that includes art theft, luxury goods smuggling, and other forms of white-collar crime. These activities often involve the same criminal networks and support systems. creating a sophisticated underground economy that operates parallel to legitimate markets. The Carlton heist, with its $136 million value, represents the pinnacle of this criminal economy. Such thefts require not only skilled executors, but also sophisticated networks capable of disposing of extremely high value, easily identifiable goods. The Carlton heist and similar crimes have driven significant evolution in the security industry. Modern high-value exhibitions now employ multi-layered security protocols, advanced surveillance technology, professional security personnel with extensive training, coordinated response procedures with law enforcement, enhanced background checking and vetting procedures, the unsolved mystery. More than a decade after the Carlton heist, the case remains one of the most significant unsolved jewelry thefts in history. The combination of the massive value, professional execution, and complete lack of resolution has created a legendary status around the crime. The heist serves as a case study in criminal sophistication and the challenges facing modern law enforcement. Despite extensive resources, international cooperation, and advanced investigative techniques, the perpetrators achieved complete success. They executed the crime, escaped without detection, disposed of the goods without trace, and have never been identified or apprehended. While the Carlton heist was executed without physical violence, it had significant human impact beyond the financial losses. The hotel staff and exhibition personnel who experienced the robbery were traumatized by the experience. The security guards, in particular, faced the psychological impact of being unable to prevent the theft despite their professional responsibilities. The broader community also felt impact as the heist contributed to an atmosphere of insecurity around high-value events and exhibitions. The glamorous world of luxury jewelry exhibitions was forced to confront the reality that sophisticated criminals were specifically targeting their events. Although no significant progress has been made in recent years, the Carlton heist technically remains an open investigation. French authorities maintain that they would pursue any new leads or evidence that might emerge, though the passage of time makes such developments increasingly unlikely. The case file remains available to investigators, and advances in forensic technology or criminal intelligence could potentially provide new avenues for investigation. However, the professional nature of the crime and the time elapsed make resolution increasingly improbable. Epilogue. The Carlton Intercontinental Hotel heist of 2013 may represent that rarest of criminal achievements, the perfect crime. The perpetrators identified a valuable target, planned meticulously, executed flawlessly, and disappeared completely. More than a decade later, they remain unidentified, unprosecuted, and presumably still in possession of one of history's most valuable jewelry collections. The heist demonstrates both the vulnerabilities inherent in displaying extremely valuable goods and the use of sophistication that modern criminal networks can achieve. It serves as a reminder that in the eternal game between criminals and law enforcement, sometimes the criminals win completely. For the Carlton Intercontinental Hotel, the heist became an unwanted chapter in its storied history. The hotel that once hosted Alfred Hitchcock's fictional jewel thieves became the scene of a real-life heist that surpassed any Hollywood imagination. The irony was not lost on observers. Life had indeed imitated art, with consequences far more significant than any movie plot. The $136 million in stolen jewelry represents not just financial loss, but a testament to criminal audacity and sophistication. Somewhere in the world, those diamonds and precious stones continue to exist, their true ownership known only to the thieves who claimed them on that quiet Sunday morning in Cannes. The Carlton heist stands as perhaps the most successful jewelry theft in history, a crime so perfectly executed that it achieved the ultimate criminal goal, complete success without consequences. In the annals of criminal history, it may well be remembered as the heist that got away. Subscribe for this and many more stories.